Haiti sa qui tourne ti mundo. Haiti ka grand monde pour tête li. Haiti sa qui tourne ti mundo. Haiti ka grand monde pour tête li. Haiti ka grand monde pour tête li, trois fois dépassé.
Greetings to all comrades, all men, and all women who are fighting for a better life in our country. Ayiti Koupe Fache is a chronicle in solidarity with the struggles of workers, toiling masses, peasants, and the struggles of all who were victims of injustice, exploitation, and repression. Ayiti Koupe Fache is presenting Chronicle 2 on the struggle to raise the minimum wage. Since the end of 2021, several workers' unions and workers' associations started to take to the streets to launch the mobilization on the minimum wage. The capitalists want us to think that it's a normal thing when we're paid a salary. Whatever the salary is, we agree to take the job. So according to the capitalists, there's no exploitation. It's a deal, a free exchange. You're offered a job and you take it. But is this true? In fact, when we think about it, we, workers with the toiling masses, we don't have a choice. We are under the obligation to sell our labor power to earn a living. Under such conditions, how is the salary determined? Why is it that in one day, a group of 40 workers sewing clothes in a factory in the industrial park in Port-au-Prince are producing garments that will sell for $29,000 in stores in New York? Meanwhile, the same 40 workers collectively don't even earn $200 for a day's work. Where is the remaining $28,800? What can explain why in 1995, H.H. Cutler, a factory in the United States that paid its workers $7.40 an hour, was able to shut down its operations, put 2,500 workers out of work, and then relocate to Haiti, where the factory then paid workers 25 cents an hour for the same work? Why is it that workers in the Dominican Republic are making a minimum salary of 1,750 goods a day, while across the border, working for the same company, Haitian workers are getting paid only 500 goods a day? Is there justice on this question? It must be clear to us what determines salary is not justice. It's about the power relations between the working class and the capitalist class at any given moment. Salary is a struggle. On the one hand, the less capitalists pay workers, the more profits they reap. So the capitalists have an interest to keep workers' salaries low. On the other hand, when workers organize collectively against the capitalists, we are stronger. As such, unions are one way that workers organize themselves to fight for their rights against the capitalists. It is this struggle that brings about big clashes between workers and capitalists, where workers carry out strikes, form unions, and big fights erupt. There are times where workers even reach the point of breaking machinery and even burn down factories. It's a massive fight because on the one hand, workers need wage hikes to have better living conditions. On the other hand, capitalists, the politicians, and the imperialists want to keep wages low. They want to keep starvation wages so they can make even more money off our backs. The state, on the other hand, pretends to be a referee of the struggle. Allegedly, its role is to bring capitalists and workers together. We all know that's not true. It's a lie. The rotten state is defending the interests of the capitalists left and right. The capitalists and the state representatives eat from the same plate. So we cannot let the rotten state play referee in the fight between the working class and the capitalist class. We must denounce the state as the stool pigeons of the capitalists.
L'État pas jamais servi. Les peuples qui tout unis, malheureux qu'a péri, ça pas qu'à jouer la vie. Mais l'État bien placé, pour le craser, briser l'aile, terre pipiti, pour faire la bourgeoisie plaisir.
The Labor Code, which is a law that prescribes the role, rights, and duties of the state, workers, and the capitalists. The Labor Code addresses issues of unions, minimum wage, rise in the cost of living, etc., among other things. The Labor Code requires that the minimum wage be set at a precise value at which the capitalist cannot go lower than what is set. Article 137 of the Labor Code states that any time the cost of living or inflation rate increases by 10% in a year, the workers' salaries must be adjusted accordingly. But the capitalists never respected the implementation of Article 137 of the Labor Code. And the state never sanctioned the capitalists for the violation of the law. The capitalists enjoy total impunity in the exploitation, oppression, injustice, and repression against the workers. Therefore, workers and the toiling masses must wage great struggle to fight for breathing room in their living conditions, which are miserable.
Ariel avec tout volé salaire minimum c'est mettre nous pour nous même gaz de bon dedans yo poussé nous en dedans pas là fermer porte la bonne gaz en dedans bon faut penser ça pour mettre sur machine nous plus que mettre même flemme la bail nous pas considérer dans sauver combien dit que ça li moun en route bon petit peu pour nous bras maman tu va à l'hôpital nous demander Ariel avec tout volé responsable après ce que ça tout le monde ça et nous fait commencer battre là pour que j'en fini.
For the Haitian bourgeoisie and capitalists, the comparative advantage of Haiti is low wage, which means a near-death salary. The slogan of the capitalists is no unions, low salaries, my labor ministry. For the workers, the toiling masses, while it is our labor power that produces the wealth the capitalists are enjoying, we cannot live on the minimum wage. According to inflation statistics from the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, if the minimum wage were adjusted according to Article 137 and indexed to the increase in the cost of living, it must be at least 1,400 goods to be equal to the 1980 minimum wage, which was 13.20 goods, or $2.64 in 1980. The Solidarity Center, a U.S.-based organization, found in a 2019 study that a family of four, a father, a mother, and two children, would need at least 1,750 goods a day, or $15 a day, to be able to live with the bare minimum, which would be equivalent to 2,500 goods a day in 2021, or $21 a day. When we consider that we workers, the toiling masses, are carrying the country on our backs, we cannot accept being forced to live on a miserly wage of 500 goods a day, or $4.17 a day. This is why unions all over Haiti are demanding that the state adjust the minimum wage to at least 1,500 goods, or $12.50 a day. To understand the working class struggle today, to raise the minimum wage in Haiti, we must consider several factors. Since the 1970s, with the complicity of the state and the local bourgeoisie under imperialist domination, Haiti's economic development has been based on the assembly industry. According to the IMF plan, Raw materials are imported and the products exported. The assembly factories don't do anything for the Haitian economy other than ensure the low wage of the workers. It is an economic orientation that is dependent. It is an economic orientation under imperialist domination, under foreign companies that take most of the profits we produce. This is an economic orientation that blocks the development of the country. Today, the assembly plants represent more than 10% of the national production of Haiti and around 90% of Haiti's exports. In recent years, the assembly plants have employed between 50,000 to 80,000 workers, representing the majority of salaried workers. The assembly plants in Haiti pay no taxes to the Haitian state on either imports or exports, or the profits repatriated to foreign countries. Therefore, every 5 years, these assembly plants merely change their names as a way to renew their advantages. In addition, the free trade zones give them advantage of being masters of the land. The capitalists in the assembly plants get paid in U.S. dollars from the multinational companies that have production contracts with them. But they pay the Haitian workers in goods. And as the goods continue to decrease in value, they make even more money. This is why workers demand that their production salary be set on the value of the dollar. The garment factories in Haiti are established under the Hope Law, also known as the Haitian Hemispheric Opportunity through Partnership Engagement Act. The Hope Law is a U.S. government law put in place to benefit U.S. companies. The Hope Law gives the assembly plants and contractors the advantage of a reduction in export tax for products exported to the U.S. The Hope Law also gives different countries the right to set production quotas for their factories to take advantage of the export tax. The Hope Law includes guarantees to make capitalists respect union rights and ensure better workers' conditions, as well as a mediation bureau to monitor labor conflicts. However, they do not always respect union rights or the working conditions of the workers. C'est comme ça des concurrences entre pays tels que République dominicaine, Honduras, Guatemala, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodge et Haïti pour offrir salaire qui plus bas ensemble avec d'autres avantages pour compagnies sous-traitantes relocalisées. C'est concurrence ça qui joue un gros rôle dans forcer salaire patrimonial et puis bloquer augmentation. In the globalization of the economy, there is world competition for assembly plants to relocate in countries that give them the most advantages. There is competition among countries like the Dominican Republic, Honduras, Guatemala, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Haiti to offer the lowest wages and other advantages for these assembly plants to relocate. This competition plays a major role in forcing low wages and is a main obstacle to raising the minimum wage in these countries. This explains why the minimum wage in these countries is less than half of what workers need to live. Today, the minimum wage in the Dominican Republic is around $17 a day in factories with more than 150 workers. That's about 1,750 goods a day, or $368 a month. The garment assembly plants in the Dominican Republic are over the quota allowed under the Hope Act. This is the main reason that the Dominican company, Grupo M, crossed the border to establish the free trade zone, Codevi, in Guanema. They did this to take advantage of the fact that Haiti has not filled its own assembly plant quota under the Hope Act. This allows Grupo M and Codevi to benefit from the low wage of the Haitian workers. The company also benefits from loans from the World Bank. Also, to take advantage of the Haitian assembly plant's unfilled quota, Korean companies left Guatemala to relocate in Caracol. Haiti's assembly plant quota still has not been filled under the HOPE Act, and the U.S. imperialist plan is to continue to fill the assembly plant quota with low wages in Haiti. It is in this context, in the midst of the situation we have described, that the struggle for the minimum wage hike is being launched today. It is a struggle against the economic development or underdevelopment plan and orientation of the country under imperialist domination. And according to the government, Haiti is open for business. It is a struggle against different clans of the Haitian bourgeoisie as stool pigeons of imperialist interests. It is a struggle against the imperialist, the core group, which is already calculating the exploitation project they will implement with the current political agreements on the backs of workers and the toiling masses. Whenever the Haitian government or the parliament tries to raise the minimum wage, the U.S. Embassy intervenes to stop or reduce the increase. In 1991, there was a coup d'etat against the first Lavalas government when it proposed to adjust the minimum wage to 28 goods, which would have been $4 in 1991. In 1994, USAID spent $26 million to block a minimum wage increase, which was adjusted to 36 goods in 1995, worth about half the minimum wage in 1980. In 2003, the minimum wage was adjusted to 70 goods, worth about 33% of the minimum wage in 1980.
Les nous convertis en dollars américains, c'est $4,67 par jour pour 8 heures de travail. Ça veut dire son crime contre l'humanité que les patrons ont fait contre l'ouvrier. Je dis à vous-même qui travaillez, sans qu'à faire avec 500 gouttes. Je dis à vous-même qui travaillez, sans qu'à faire avec 600 gouttes. Je dis à les ouvriers, c'est à 450 gouttes de payer. Comment ils font payer machine? Comment ils font payer manger?
In 2009, the Haitian parliament voted to adjust the minimum wage to 200 goods. But the U.S. and the Haitian bourgeoisie put a lot of pressure on the Préval government to reduce it to 125 goods, worth 30% of the 1980 minimum wage. Today, the 500 goods, or $4.17, is worth 38% of the 1980 minimum wage. Each year, even with struggles to raise the wage, the minimum wage has been losing value. The imperialists in the Haitian bourgeoisie are mobilizing to add only a few goods to the 500 goods, while we workers are demanding at least 1,500 goods with social benefits, such as subsidies for transportation, food, and housing. We have to fully understand and assess the forces facing us so we can lead the struggle. Against us are all the reactionary classes, the bourgeois capitalists, the politicians, and the imperialist countries. This is no small fight. There is a long chain of struggle ahead of us, but the masses, the people in battle never lose a fight. We can win victory. In this fight, the Haitian working class is carrying the international torch of the working class of the world. Our gathering, our solidarity, our unity in the working class and toiling masses will represent a force in the great chain of battle of the working class worldwide. We should not retreat. We should not accept the slave wage. Therefore, in this fight we're in, we must build alliances with the struggles of the working class worldwide until we abolish this system of injustice. There are two orientations in the struggle for the minimum wage in the working class. On the one hand, there are workers, unions, and groups of workers who agree that we cannot live on the 500 goods a day, that the capitalists spit on our hands. But they will accept a small increase and everything is over. The struggle is over. This would not be in our short-term, immediate term, or long-term interests. Let's say we accept a small increase today. Before tomorrow, the cost of living would absorb that small increase right away. So we would remain in the same situation. In the working class, there is another orientation that calls for bold struggles to launch the minimum wage fight. A small increase from the capitalists will amount to nothing. To carry out this fight well, we must build strong solidarity and unity among us, build strong independent organizations on all levels, factory committees, and advance with conviction, determination, and spirit of responsibility and discipline. The fundamental cause that the capitalists are able to acquire the wealth that we workers produce is that they have the state at their service with all the repressive armed forces, police violence and brutality, including the criminal armed gangs. They own the repressive forces. We, the workers, must work to change the relation of forces in our favor. This requires total mobilization. Mobilization on the minimum salary is a collective fight of the working classes and the toiling masses. There's no standing on the sidelines to criticize and gossip. All of us workers and toiling masses are to put our feet in the water collectively. Our labor power produces the wealth, and we want our share in it. The fight of the workers and the toiling masses to increase or adjust the minimum wage concerns all workers, all toiling masses, the whole people's camp. When minimum wage increases, living conditions are better for all of us. It is the fight of the people's camp. It's only when we all take responsibility in the fight that we will change the power relations in our favor in the people's camp. We must fight for another state under the control of the people's camp against the imperialist and reactionary classes for a truly liberated Haiti. Let's break with all the stool pigeons of the bourgeoisie and the imperialists.
Nous c'est tout pour la vie menacée vrai fondé de me chanter ça mon compère oui aoulo mon compère oui fondé de me chanter ça mon compère